From the outside, my life with Olivia appeared flawless, a picturesque marriage built on love, success, and family. I was the calm, practical businessman who valued loyalty and trust, while Olivia thrived in high society circles, commanding attention with her charm and elegance. Our children, Lily and Ethan, were away on holiday with my parents, granting us a rare moment of solitude. It seemed like the perfect opportunity to reconnect as a couple, or so I thought. When Olivia suggested a vacation, I was surprised. "It'll be good for us," she declared with that winning smile of hers. "Just the two of us, a chance to relax, unwind, and rekindle what we have." Her words were convincing, yet I detected a subtle impatience in her tone, as if she were waiting for me to agree without question. And I did. How could I not? Trusting Olivia had always been my default setting. Besides, she was right. We deserved a break. She took charge of planning the trip, insisting she knew exactly what we needed. "I'll handle everything," she announced, dismissing my concerns with a wave of her perfectly manicured hand. I didn't argue. Olivia had a way of taking the reins and making it seem like she was doing me a favor. Truthfully, I was relieved to have one less thing to consider amidst the chaos of running a business. The weeks leading up to the vacation were a whirlwind of her excitement and my quiet anticipation. She spent hours researching resorts, booking spa packages, and shopping for vacation outfits. I simply nodded along, allowing her enthusiasm to carry us both. I reminded myself that this trip was her way of trying, of showing she cared about our relationship. Yet, as the departure date loomed, I couldn't shake a nagging feeling. It wasn't anything concrete, just a persistent sense that something was amiss. Olivia's excitement seemed almost too rehearsed, her insistence on handling every detail unusually firm. Still, I dismissed my unease, doubting Olivia felt disloyal, and I wasn't the type to second-guess my wife. When the day finally arrived, I watched her pack with an efficiency that spoke of vast experience. "Are you sure you've got everything?" I asked, half joking. "You've packed enough for a month." She laughed lightly, brushing off my comment. "You know how I am, always prepared." As we headed to the airport, I allowed myself to relax. Maybe this was exactly what we needed, a chance to reconnect without the incessant distractions of daily life. I looked at Olivia, radiant and confident, and remembered why I had fallen in love with her in the first place. The flight was smooth, and Olivia spent most of it scrolling through her phone, occasionally glancing at me with a distracted smile. I didn't mind. I was content to sit quietly, imagining the serene beaches and peaceful days ahead. For once, I let myself believe that everything was as perfect as it seemed. Upon our arrival at the resort, Olivia's face lit up with unbridled excitement. "Isn't this stunning?" she gushed, gesturing to the grand entrance and the crystal-clear view of the ocean. I nodded, genuinely impressed. The place was undeniably luxurious, far beyond what I would have chosen for myself, but I didn't mind splurging if it made Olivia happy. As we checked in, she leaned into me, her voice low and conspiratorial. "This is going to be amazing, David. Just you wait." Her words felt reassuring, and I let my earlier doubts fade. For the first time in a long while, I felt optimistic. Whatever issues we had, this vacation felt like a definitive step in the right direction. Little did I know the perfect start was nothing more than an illusion, a carefully crafted facade that was about to shatter in the most unexpected way. The resort was breathtaking, the kind of place that graced the covers of luxury travel magazines. The expansive lobby gleamed with polished marble floors, towering glass windows offering a panoramic view of the turquoise ocean. A welcome drink in hand, I allowed myself a moment to absorb it all. Perhaps Olivia was right. This vacation could be the fresh start we so desperately needed. "David, look who's here," Olivia exclaimed, waving enthusiastically. Three women, Clara, Fiona, and Melissa, strode toward us, their designer sunglasses perched atop perfectly styled hair. Their energy filled the room like a tidal wave, all high-pitched laughter and exaggerated greetings. I blinked, confused. This was supposed to be a couple's getaway. Olivia hadn't mentioned anyone else joining us. Clara reached us first, pulling Olivia into a tight hug. "Liv, you look amazing." I can't believe we're finally doing this. This place is incredible, Melissa chimed in, her eyes sweeping the opulent surroundings. Leave it to Olivia to pick the best. I stood there, an outsider in what was clearly a prearranged gathering. Olivia turned to me, her smile wide and bright. David, you remember Clara, Fiona, and Melissa, don't you? I nodded politely, though I barely remembered them from past social events Olivia had dragged me to. Isn't this wonderful? Olivia said, slipping her arm through mine. We can all relax together. It'll be so much fun. Fun? That was one word for it. The group gravitated toward the plush seating area in the lobby where drinks and appetizers were already waiting. I trailed behind, still processing the fact that this wasn't a trip for two. As the women settled in, their laughter filled the air. Olivia was in her element, the undisputed center of attention, effortlessly steering the conversation. I tried to participate, but every attempt to contribute was met with polite indifference or redirected back to Olivia. Then came the subtle jabs. David, you're so lucky Olivia handles everything, Fiona remarked with a sly smile. I don't know how you'd manage without her. I mean, let's be honest, Clara added, swirling her drink. Olivia is the real powerhouse, isn't she? Running the household, keeping up with us, and still finding time for you. They laughed, and I forced a smile, masking the sting. Olivia didn't defend me. In fact, she leaned into the narrative, casually boasting about her connections and accomplishments as if I were an afterthought. Well, someone has to keep things running, Olivia said, raising her glass. David's got his business, but I'm the glue that holds everything together. The women cheered, raising their glasses in a mock toast. I sipped my drink in silence, wondering how I had ended up here. As the evening wore on, the conversation shifted to extravagant vacations, designer brands, and social events I had no interest in. Every now and then, Olivia would glance at me, her smile a mix of amusement and something else I couldn't quite place. Was it satisfaction? At one point, Melissa leaned forward, her voice low but not low enough. You're so lucky, Liv. Most guys wouldn't fund a trip like this. Fund? My grip tightened on my glass. Of course, I'd agreed to pay for the trip, but hearing it framed this way felt profoundly wrong. Olivia laughed lightly, brushing off the comment. Well, David understands the importance of treating me right, don't you, darling? I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. Of course. Inside, something shifted. This wasn't a couple's getaway. This was Olivia's stage, and I was merely a prop. When the gathering finally dispersed for the night, I felt more like an outsider than ever. Olivia seemed oblivious, chatting animatedly with Clara as we made our way to the front desk to check in. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, the receptionist greeted us. Your party's rooms are ready. Party? The word hit me like a slap. As the receptionist handed over the keys, I noticed something strange. All the rooms were registered under my credit card, every single one. Excuse me, I said, my voice calm but firm. There seems to be a mistake. I only authorized one room. The receptionist hesitated for a fraction of a second before Olivia stepped in smoothly. Oh, it's fine, David. I arranged everything. Trust me, it's easier this way. I turned to Olivia, waiting for an explanation. Instead, she handed me a single key. Here's your room, she said casually. I'll be staying with Clara tonight. We just have so much to catch up on. Before I could respond, Fiona chuckled. She needs her space, David. Don't take it personally. The others laughed, and I felt my face heat. Olivia handed the rest of the keys to her friends, who accepted them without question. We reserved rooms only for the elites, Melissa joked, grinning at me. It was then I realized how thoroughly I'd been played. This wasn't a vacation for us. This was Olivia's show, funded entirely by me. I looked at her, my expression unreadable. Enjoy your evening, I said evenly, pocketing the key. And then, without another word, I walked out of the lobby. I stepped outside into the cool evening air, the laughter of Olivia and her friends still echoing in my ears. The resort was stunning under the glow of the setting sun, but its beauty felt hollow now, tainted by the sting of betrayal. I stood there for a moment, breathing deeply, trying to suppress the storm brewing inside me. I wasn't the type to cause a scene. I never had been. But this was a level of disrespect I hadn't anticipated, even from Olivia. Walking back inside, I decided I needed clarity. Maybe there had been a misunderstanding, a miscommunication. I approached the front desk again, where the receptionist offered me a polite smile. "Mr. Bennett, is there something I can assist you with?" "Yes," I said, my tone steady. "I noticed all the rooms are under my credit card. Could you confirm the total booking details for me?" The receptionist hesitated for a fraction of a second before typing on her keyboard. "Of course, sir. There are 4 rooms reserved under your name, all charged to the card on file. Is there an issue?" 4 rooms charged to me? I clenched my jaw, nodding slowly. "No issue. Thank you for confirming." I stepped away, my thoughts racing. Olivia hadn't just invited her friends on this trip. She had funded their entire stay on my dime. And the fact that she hadn't bothered to mention it, that spoke volumes. Making my way to my assigned room, I tried to calm down. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe Olivia had intended to tell me but had been waiting for the right moment. Maybe. I opened the door to my room, a standard suite that was perfectly fine but noticeably less luxurious than what I'd glimpsed in the other rooms during check-in. Another detail that didn't escape me. Dropping my bag onto the bed, I sat down and rubbed my temples. I needed to talk to Olivia, to hear her explanation, even if I already had a sinking feeling I knew exactly how this conversation would go. Gathering my resolve, I left the room and headed to the suite where Olivia was staying with Clara. The door was ajar and their voices spilled out into the hallway. "David's probably sulking right now." Olivia's voice floated out, light and dismissive. Clara laughed. "You don't have to explain yourself to him. He's lucky to even be here, honestly, Liv. You're too nice sometimes." "Oh, please," Olivia replied. "David's harmless. He knows better than to make a fuss. Besides, this is my trip. He should just be grateful I let him tag along." The laughter that followed hit me like a physical blow. I stood frozen in the hallway, anger and humiliation warring within me. Grateful? Let me tag along? Was this really how she saw me? Taking a deep breath, I stepped back and returned to my room. Confronting her in the middle of her little audience would only give her and her friends more fuel to mock me. No, I needed to think this through. Later that evening, Olivia returned to the room briefly, her expression casual as if nothing had happened. "David," she said, her tone breezy, "I'll be staying with Clara tonight. You don't mind, do you?" I stared at her, my voice calm but firm. "Mind? Not at all. Enjoy your evening." She gave me a brief smile, clearly mistaking my composure for acceptance, and left without another word. As the door clicked shut behind her, I sat down on the edge of the bed, staring at the space she had just vacated. How had we gotten here? How had the woman I once loved and trusted turned into someone who could treat me with such disdain? The answer didn't come, but my decision did. The next morning, I packed my bags and checked out of the resort without a word to Olivia or her friends. As I handed the receptionist my room key, she looked surprised. "Leaving so soon, Mr. Bennett?" "Yes," I replied evenly. "Please ensure all remaining charges to my card are canceled immediately." The receptionist nodded, sensing the finality in my tone. "Of course, sir." Walking out of the resort, I didn't feel regret. I felt relief. Olivia had made it clear where I stood in her life, and I wasn't going to stay where I wasn't valued. I slipped my phone out of my pocket, opened my banking app, and began canceling every card connected to Olivia's spending. Then I made one more call. "Mr. Bennett, how can I help you?" "I'd like to begin drafting divorce papers," I said, my voice steady. "Today." The drive home was quiet, the kind of silence that forces you to confront every thought, every doubt, every simmering emotion. I'd replayed the events of the past 24 hours over and over in my mind, each detail sharpening my resolve. Olivia's betrayal wasn't just about the money, it was about the lack of respect, the mockery, the complete disregard for the partnership I thought we shared. When I pulled into the driveway, the house greeted me like an old friend, a stark contrast to the false luxury of the resort. It felt good to be home, a place that had always offered me comfort and stability, but even this space now carried traces of Olivia's manipulation. I went straight to my office, shutting the door behind me. The room was my sanctuary, lined with bookshelves and a large oak desk where I had made countless decisions that shaped my business. But this decision felt different. It wasn't about contracts or clients. It was about reclaiming my life. I opened my laptop and logged into our joint accounts. The numbers stared back at me, a grim reminder of how deeply Olivia had benefited from my trust. With a few keystrokes, I froze every account she had access to, ensuring she wouldn't be able to spend another dime without my knowledge. Next, I called the credit card company. The representative on the other end was polite, almost too cheerful for the gravity of what I was doing. "Yes, I'd like to cancel all cards associated with my account," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Immediately." "Of course, Mr. Bennett. Is there a specific reason for the cancellation?" "Fraudulent activity," I replied without hesitation. The word tasted bitter in my mouth, but it was the truth. Olivia had abused my trust, and I wasn't going to let it continue. Once the financials were secured, I turned my attention to the divorce papers. My lawyer, Rebecca, was efficient as always. "I'll have the first draft ready by tomorrow," she assured me. "Do you want to include any stipulations regarding the house or other assets?" "Yes," I said firmly. "The house stays with me, and I want to ensure custody arrangements are fair for the kids. They don't deserve to be caught in the middle of this." Rebecca agreed, her tone professional yet empathetic. "Understood. I'll make sure everything is in order." By the time I hung up, the weight on my chest had lessened slightly. I was taking control piece by piece, and it felt empowering. Meanwhile, I imagined Olivia back at the resort, basking in the glow of her so-called freedom. She probably hadn't even noticed I was gone yet, or maybe she had and was too proud to care. Either way, she would soon realize the consequences of her actions. As the day turned into evening, I allowed myself a rare indulgence, a quiet dinner alone, free from the tension and performative conversations that had become the norm with Olivia. I poured myself a glass of wine, savoring the peace that had been absent for far too long. The next morning, I checked my phone. As expected, there were no messages from Olivia. It was almost laughable. Here I was, her husband, the man who had funded her lavish lifestyle, and she couldn't even bother to check in. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Not a call, but a notification from one of the credit cards I'd canceled. Olivia was trying to use it. A smile tugged at the corners of my mouth as I imagined the scene. Olivia confidently handing over the card, only to have it declined, her friends watching, judgmental and curious. The facade she had built was starting to crack. I didn't feel guilty, not even a little. She had made her choices, and now she would face the consequences. Over the next few hours, the notifications kept coming. Spa treatments, room service, designer boutiques, all declined. Olivia's spending spree was unraveling in real time, and I didn't lift a finger to stop it. By evening, the calls started, first a single ring, then silence, then another, more persistent. I ignored them all, letting her desperation build. Finally, I turned my phone off entirely, sinking into the couch with a sense of satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. Olivia thought she could control me, manipulate me, but she was wrong. This wasn't the calm before the storm. The storm had already begun, and Olivia was about to realize just how much damage it would cause. The calls started early the next morning. My phone buzzed relentlessly, the screen lighting up with Olivia's name over and over again. I let it ring, savoring the irony. For years, I had been the one reaching out, trying to bridge the gaps between us, only to be dismissed or ignored. Now the tables had turned, and Olivia was desperate to get my attention. By mid-morning, I received a notification that made me pause, a message from the resort. Olivia's failed transactions were piling up, and the hotel was demanding payment. I smirked, imagining the chaos unfolding on her end. At the resort, things were unraveling quickly. Olivia and her friends had continued their indulgent lifestyle, oblivious to the financial storm brewing. They ordered extravagant meals, booked spa packages, and even planned a private boat ride, all under the assumption that my money would cover it. But reality struck hard when the first card was declined. "What do you mean, declined?" Olivia asked, her voice loud enough to turn heads in the elegant dining hall. The waiter shifted uncomfortably, holding out the receipt. "I'm sorry, ma'am, the payment didn't go through. Perhaps there's another card you'd like to use." Fiona leaned over, her expression incredulous. "Are you serious? This is Olivia Bennett we're talking about. Just run the card again." "I've already tried, ma'am," the waiter replied, his tone apologetic but firm. Olivia's confidence faltered as she handed over a second card, another one linked to me. The waiter returned moments later, shaking his head. "Declined," he said simply. The laughter and chatter at their table died, replaced by an uneasy silence. Clara was the first to break it. "Olivia, what's going on?" Olivia forced a smile, waving off their concern. "It's just a mistake. David must have moved some things around. It'll all be sorted out." But as the hours passed and more transactions failed, the cracks in Olivia's facade grew wider. Resort staff approached her with increasing urgency, their polite professionalism giving way to firm demands for payment. Back home, I monitored the situation from a distance, my phone lighting up with alerts each time Olivia tried to use a card. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck, and I couldn't look away. By the end of the day, Olivia's desperation reached its peak. She called me again, her voice strained. When I finally answered, "David," she began, her tone laced with forced calm. "There seems to be an issue with the credit cards. The resort staff is saying they're declined. Can you check on that for me?" I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch before answering. "I already know, Olivia." Her breath hitched. "What do you mean?" "I mean I canceled them, all of them." The line went silent for a moment. Then her voice returned sharp and accusing. "You canceled them? Why would you do that?" "Why?" I repeated, my voice calm but icy. "Because I'm done, Olivia. Done funding your games, your lies, and your ego. You've taken enough from me, and it stops now." "You're overreacting," she said, her voice rising. "This is just a misunderstanding. You didn't need to humiliate me like this." I laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "Humiliate you? That's rich, coming from the woman who brought her friends on a trip I paid for and mocked me in front of them." "No, Olivia, this isn't humiliation. This is justice." Before she could respond, I ended the call, cutting off whatever excuse or manipulation she had prepared. Back at the resort, Olivia's world continued to crumble. Clara and Fiona, once so eager to bask in her glow, began to distance themselves. "Olivia, what's really going on?" Clara demanded. "You said you had everything under control. Now we're stuck with unpaid bills and no way to cover them." Fiona crossed her arms, her expression sour. "Were you lying about being the breadwinner? Is David the one paying for everything?" Olivia's temper flared, but she couldn't deny the truth. "It's not like that," she insisted. "David's just being difficult." But her friends weren't convinced. The bond they had shared, if it could even be called that, was disintegrating under the weight of Olivia's deception. As the resort staff continued to press for payment, Olivia realized she had no choice but to face the consequences. She tried calling me again, but I ignored every attempt. Later that evening, she received another blow. A resort employee approached her in the lobby, handing her an envelope. Her hands, trembling, tore open the envelope. The stark, bold declaration, "Divorce petition," screamed from the page, a death knell to her carefully constructed world. Around her, a tableau of stunned silence unfolded as her friends, gathered like vultures, peered over her shoulder. The humiliation was absolute. "Olivia," Clara finally uttered, her voice laced with a potent cocktail of pity and exasperation, "you've truly outdone yourself this time." And in that chilling pronouncement, Olivia was, for the first time in an age, utterly and irrevocably alone. 2 days. 2 days had passed since my escape from the gilded cage of the resort, and I had held firm to my resolve. Olivia was cut off. My phone, a silent sentinel on the kitchen counter, flickered with her insistent calls, each ignored. By now, the meticulously arranged divorce papers would have found their mark. I could only conjure the explosive scene of her discovery. The inevitable fallout wasn't long in coming. That very evening, as I wrestled with documents in my office, my phone vibrated with a relentless urgency. Not Olivia, I realized, glancing at the unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "David Bennett," I stated, my voice clipped. "Mr. Bennett, this is Karen from the Riviera Resort," a polite yet unsettlingly firm voice replied. "We're reaching out regarding an urgent matter involving your wife and her partner. It appears there are significant unpaid charges for their stay, and they've informed us you were the account holder." A suppressed laugh escaped me as I leaned back, a predatory calm settling in. "Karen, I'm not entirely sure what Olivia has relayed to you, but I am no longer in a position where I'm responsible for her expenses. In fact, I've taken rather definitive steps to ensure that very outcome." Karen hesitated, clearly thrown. "I understand, sir, but the charges are substantial. We were hoping to resolve this amicably." "I have no doubt," I countered, my tone frigid. "However, Olivia and her companions are adults. They are fully capable of resolving this themselves. Good luck." I ended the call, a slow shake of my head a silent testament to the years of her tangled messes. Olivia had always relied on me to be her convenient cleanup crew, but those days were a relic of a past best forgotten. Back at the opulent prison that was the resort, Olivia's world imploded. The moment those divorce papers landed, the resort staff, their patience finally fractured, demanded immediate payment. The veiled threat of local authorities hung heavy in the air. "David can't do this!" Olivia raged, a frantic lioness pacing the plush lobby. She clutched the damning papers in one hand, her phone a useless talisman in the other. "He's just being petty. He'll cave. He always does." The resort manager, however, remained unmoved by her melodrama. "Ma'am, this is a business matter. We require payment in full before your party can continue to utilize our facilities." Clara, who had been a silent observer of this unfolding catastrophe, finally snapped. "Olivia, what in God's name is happening? First the cards are declined, and now we're being told the bills haven't been paid? You said you had this covered." Fiona, never one to temper her words, chimed in, a venomous edge to her voice. "You lied to us, didn't you? All that grand talk about being the breadwinner, it's all David's money, isn't it?" Olivia glared at them, her carefully constructed composure fracturing into 1,000 pieces. "That's not the point. David's being vindictive. He canceled everything without warning." "Perhaps," Clara retorted, a cruel twist to her lips, "because he's finally tired of your games." The tension, thick and suffocating, hung between them. Olivia, once the magnetic epicenter of their group, the confident ringleader, now stood exposed, vulnerable. Her so-called friends, those who had basked in the reflected glow of her generosity, were now turning on her like a pack of starving wolves. The final insult arrived when the resort staff, their patience truly exhausted, demanded their passports as collateral. The humiliation was complete, a bitter taste in her mouth. Olivia was forced to swallow her pride, to dial her brother, to beg for a loan to settle the mounting bills. He acquiesced reluctantly, but not before delivering a blistering lecture that left her seething. By the time the payment cleared, the damage was irreparable. Clara and Fiona, their disgust palpable, packed their bags. "This isn't what I signed up for," Clara declared, her voice colder than ice. "You can find your own way home, Olivia." Fiona cast a scornful glance. "Good luck with your divorce. You're going to need it." And just like that, Olivia was utterly, undeniably alone. The next morning, she returned to our home, a desperate hope for some semblance of normalcy flickering within her. Instead, she was met with locked doors and a stark, impersonal note taped to the front. "Olivia, your belongings have been packed and sent to your brother's house. Please contact Rebecca Smith for any further communication. She'll handle the rest. David." The words were short, brutal, and utterly final. Olivia stood on the porch, a desolate figure, staring at the life she had so carelessly squandered. Inside I sat, a cup of coffee cradled in my hands, watching her through the window. It wasn't cruelty that held me captive, but a profound clarity. This was the life she had chosen, and I would not allow her to drag me down into its abyss any longer. After several agonizing minutes, her shoulders slumped in defeat. She finally left. I watched her drive away, a strange cocktail of relief and melancholy swirling within me. This was not the ending I had envisioned for our marriage, but it was the only path forward. For the first time in years, I felt unbound. The house settled into a profound quiet once Olivia was gone, a stillness that felt like a fresh canvas, a clean slate. I lingered by the window, sipping my coffee, watching her car shrink into the distance. A heavy ache resided within me, a ghost of the wreckage of what once was. Yet another part, a part I hadn't felt in years, surged with an exhilarating sense of liberation. I was untangled from her endless manipulations, her suffocating ego, her insatiable need to dominate every facet of our existence. With her departure, the true work began. My children, Lily and Ethan, deserved better than to piece together the shattered remnants of our marriage from hushed whispers or Olivia's self-serving social circle. I had to tell them carefully, truthfully, yet shielding them from the bitter adult conflicts that had consumed us. That evening, after their return from their trip with my parents, their innocent laughter still echoing through the living room as they recounted their adventures, I sat them down. I dreaded shattering their joy, but I knew it couldn't wait. "Lily, Ethan," I began, my voice steady, though undeniably soft. "There's something important I need to talk to you about." Their smiles faltered, exchanging worried glances. "Is everything okay, Dad?" Ethan asked, his young brow furrowed. "It will be," I assured them, "but things are going to change. Your mom and I have decided to separate." Lily's eyes widened, a fragile innocence replaced by a dawning comprehension. "Separate? What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, carefully choosing my words. "It means we won't be living together anymore. Your mom and I have had some problems for a long time, and this is the best decision for all of us." "But why?" Lily's voice cracked, her young mind struggling to grasp the complex tapestry of adult relationships. I leaned forward, meeting their gaze. "Sometimes, even when two people care about each other, they realize they're not happy together. It's no one's fault, and it doesn't change how much we love you." Ethan frowned, deep in thought. "So, Mom's leaving?" "Yes," I said gently. "She's staying with your uncle for now. You'll still see her, and she'll always be your mom. That will never change." Lily sniffled, and I reached out, clasping her small hand. "I know it's hard to understand right now, but I promise we'll get through this together. You two are the most important people in my life, and I'll always be here for you." They nodded slowly, their faces a poignant mix of sadness and confusion. It was far from an easy conversation, but it was essential. I wanted them to feel secure, anchored, even as the currents of our family dynamic shifted. The next few days were a blur of adjustment. My focus narrowed to creating a stable routine for the children, ensuring they felt safe, cherished, and loved. I became their unwavering anchor, escorting them to school, patiently helping with homework, and orchestrating movie nights to distract them from the lingering tension. Meanwhile, Olivia's world continued its descent. Word of her financial woes and our impending divorce spread like wildfire through her social circles. The friends who had once flocked to her lavish parties, drawn by her magnetic persona and lavish favors, now distanced themselves, unwilling to be tainted by her crumbling status. Her brother called me once, his voice heavy with exasperation. "David," he sighed, she's blaming everyone but herself. I don't know how to deal with her." I leaned back in my chair. "She'll have to figure it out, Jacob. I've done all I can." "Do you think she'll change?" he asked, a faint tremor in his voice. I hesitated. "I don't know. That's entirely up to her." Simultaneously, a lightness began to bloom within me. Without Olivia's incessant demands and relentless criticism, a space opened for me to rediscover myself. I plunged into my work, channeling every ounce of energy into new, ambitious projects. I even began reconnecting with old friends. People I hadn't seen in years because Olivia had always found a reason to keep me tethered to her insular world. One evening, as I helped Ethan with his science project, he looked up at me, a profound simplicity in his gaze. "Dad, you seem happier." The observation, so pure and unburdened, caught me off guard. I smiled, ruffling his hair. "Thanks, buddy. I think I am." The divorce proceedings, meticulously prepared, moved with swift efficiency. Rebecca, my lawyer, handled everything with quiet competence, ensuring a settlement that was fair yet unyielding. Olivia initially resisted, fighting every point, but she quickly grasped the brutal truth. She held virtually no leverage. By the time the divorce was finalized, a profound sense of closure settled over me. It wasn't the life I had once envisioned, but it was a life I could and would rebuild. A life rooted in honesty, in respect, and in the unwavering love I held for my children. As for Olivia, her isolation deepened, a chilling echo of her own choices. Stripped of the financial security and social clout she had once commanded, she was forced to confront the harsh reality of her past decisions. Whether she would learn from them remained an open question, but it was no longer my concern. I had my children, my newfound peace, and a future that for the first time in years felt radiantly bright. The fallout was over, and in its place, the promise of a new beginning. When I made the decision to sever all ties with Olivia, I knew it would force her to confront the raw, unvarnished consequences of her actions. What I hadn't anticipated was the terrifying speed with which her carefully constructed world would crumble around her. The woman who had once reveled in the blinding spotlight of high society, who had meticulously curated a retinue of sycophants, was now facing the brutal reality of life without me as her meticulously maintained safety net. It began with whispers, insidious currents that permeated her former social circles. Clara and Fiona, her fair-weather friends who had so readily abandoned her at the resort, wasted no time in disseminating their version of events. The scandalous tales of Olivia's unpaid bills, her public humiliation, and the brutal delivery of divorce papers amidst a luxury vacation quickly made their rounds. Her meticulously crafted image of a powerful, independent woman shattered overnight, reduced to fragments of gossip and derision. Olivia had always thrived on being the epicenter of attention, the dazzling life of every party. Now she was the sole topic of ridicule. Invitations to exclusive events mysteriously dried up, and those who had once flattered her with obsequious deference now conveniently ignored her calls. The socialite who once commanded rooms with her mere presence was now a pariah, a ghost haunting the edges of a world that no longer welcomed her. Her brother Jacob reluctantly took her in after her ignominious return from the resort. He became my unwitting informant, his calls a litany of frustration during those first few weeks. "David," he said one evening, his voice heavy with exhaustion, "she's impossible. She refuses to accept responsibility for anything. She blames you for everything, the divorce, the money, even her friends turning on her." I leaned back in my chair, a weary sigh escaping me. "She needs to wake up, Jacob. This is the bed she made. All I can do is focus on moving forward for the kids and for myself." Jacob groaned. "I know, I wish she'd realize how good she had it. You gave her everything, David, and this is how she repays you." "She'll figure it out," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "Or she won't. Either way, it's no longer my concern." Despite his frustrations, Jacob genuinely tried to help her. He gently encouraged her to seek employment, but Olivia scoffed at the very notion. The woman who had once mocked me for my long hours now found herself unwilling and utterly unprepared to undertake such mundane tasks. "I can't work a regular job, Jacob," she snapped during one of their arguments, which he later recounted to me. "Do you know how humiliating that would be? People would talk." "People are already talking, Olivia," he shot back, his patience finally fraying. Meanwhile, my own life flourished, unburdened by Olivia's incessant demands and manufactured drama. I rediscovered the man I was before her all-consuming presence. My business thrived as I poured my renewed energy into new projects, each success a testament to my newfound freedom. More importantly, my relationship with Lily and Ethan deepened, blossoming into something truly beautiful. Weekends became a cherished tapestry of hiking adventures, shared culinary experiments, and even a few challenging DIY projects around the house. One evening, as we lingered around the dinner table, Lily looked at me, her young eyes thoughtful. "Dad, do you miss Mom?" The question, so innocent yet so profound, caught me off guard, but I answered honestly, "I miss the good times, Lily, but I don't miss the way things were at the end. Sometimes letting go is the best thing you can do for yourself and for the people you care about." She nodded, her young mind processing my words. "I think I understand. You seem happier now." "I am," I said, smiling at both her and Ethan. "And that's because I have you two. You're the most important part of my life." Olivia, on the other hand, struggled to adapt, her every attempt to cling to her old lifestyle falling flat. Her isolation deepened, a suffocating blanket woven from her own choices. She reached out to a few acquaintances, a desperate hope to rekindle friendships, but was met only with polite excuses and vague, empty promises to catch up soon. One day the phone rang, displaying her name. I debated whether to answer, but ultimately decided it was better to hear her out than to allow her to fester in my mind. "David," she began, her tone softer than I'd heard in years, hesitant, almost fragile. I just wanted to talk." "What do you need, Olivia?" I asked, keeping my voice carefully neutral, allowing no cracks of emotion to show. There was a prolonged pause before she replied, her voice barely a whisper. "I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I didn't realize how much I depended on you until it was gone. I know I messed up and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to tell you." Her words, raw and unpolished, truly surprised me, but I didn't let my guard down, not entirely. "I appreciate the apology," I said carefully, "but an apology doesn't erase what happened. I've moved on, Olivia, and I think you should too." She sniffled, and for a fleeting moment a pang of sympathy flickered within me. But I ruthlessly reminded myself of all the times I had tried to fix things, only to be met with her contempt and indifference. "Take care of yourself, Olivia," I said before ending the call. After that, her calls became less frequent. Jacob occasionally mentioned her progress, that she had finally started looking for work, though her efforts were slow, arduous. She was learning the hard way that the world doesn't cater to those who take it for granted. As for me, I focused on the future, unburdened by bitterness or lingering anger. I was simply profoundly free. Olivia's isolation was the inevitable consequence of her choices, and while I wished her no ill will, I had no intention of allowing her to drag me back into her chaos. Life without Olivia was quieter, simpler, and filled with opportunities I hadn't realized I was missing. For the first time in years, a profound peace settled within me. Months had passed since Olivia, like a destructive force, had walked out of my life, leaving behind the wreckage of our marriage. In that time, I had painstakingly built something stronger, something infinitely more fulfilling, not just for myself, but for Lily and Ethan too. It hadn't been easy, but every difficult step had been worth it. Olivia's unexpected apology still lingered in my mind, her uncharacteristically soft voice having struck a chord. For years, she had been the sun around which our relationship revolved, consuming all the light while I quietly supported her in the shadows. Hearing her admit fault was unexpected, yet it was not enough to erase the indelible scars of her betrayal. One afternoon, as I worked in the quiet solitude of my home office, my phone buzzed. It was Olivia. I hesitated, a moment of internal debate, then answered. "David," she began, her voice still laced with hesitation, I wanted to ask if we could meet, just to talk, in person." "About what?" I asked, my voice carefully guarded, refusing to allow any vulnerability to show. "Everything," she said, a raw plea in her tone. I need to apologize properly, please." After a long deliberate pause, I agreed. "All right, tomorrow, at the cafe near the park. Noon." The next day I arrived early, a curious blend of apprehension and detached curiosity swirling within me. Olivia walked in a few minutes later, looking undeniably different. Gone were her usual designer clothes, the meticulously styled hair, She looked tired, humbled, like someone who had been through a raging storm and was still struggling to find her footing on solid ground. "Thank you for coming," she said, settling into the chair opposite me. I simply nodded, waiting for her to speak. "I've had a lot of time to think," she began, her hands clasped tightly on the table, a visible tremor running through them. "About us, about what I did to you, to our family, and I realize now how selfish I was. I took you for granted, David. You gave me everything, and I repaid you by treating you like you didn't matter." Her words were raw, unpolished, and they struck me with an unexpected force. "I don't know if you'll ever forgive me," she continued, her voice cracking, "but I needed to tell you how sorry I am for the lies, the manipulation, the way I made you feel like you were less than you are. You didn't deserve that." I looked at her, searching for any flicker of insincerity, but all I saw was a woman broken by her own choices, desperately trying to piece herself back together. I I appreciate the apology," I said finally, my voice still guarded, yet with a hint of softening. "But Olivia, forgiveness doesn't mean going back to the way things were. Too much has happened and I can't trust you again. Not the way I used to." She nodded, tears streaming silently down her face. "I understand. I don't expect us to go back. I needed to make things right, even if it's only in words." We sat in silence for a while, the immense weight of everything unsaid hanging heavy between us. "How are the kids?" she asked softly, breaking the silence. "They're doing well," I replied. "They miss you, but they're adjusting. I've tried to keep things stable for them." She smiled weakly, a ghost of her old self. "You're a good father, David. Better than I ever gave you credit for." Her words hit harder than I expected. For years, I had been the unwavering, steadfast force in our family, the one who made sacrifices without recognition. Hearing her acknowledge that, even now, was both validating and profoundly bittersweet. "I'll always be there for them," I said, my gaze steady, "and I hope you'll do the same." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I will. I'm trying to rebuild my life, to be someone they can be proud of again." We parted ways that day on a somewhat lighter note. While there was no reconciliation, there was closure, a palpable sense that the deep wounds we had inflicted upon each other were, at last, beginning to heal. In the weeks that followed, I saw genuine glimpses of Olivia's effort to change. She reached out to the children more often, attending their school events, making sincere attempts to reconnect. I allowed her that space, knowing how crucial it was for Lily and Ethan to have both parents actively present in their lives. As for me, I continued to move forward, unfettered. I had started seeing someone, a kind, genuine woman named Emily, who valued me for who I was, not for what I could provide. Our relationship was still new, a fragile seedling, but it felt profoundly different. It felt real. One evening, as I sat on the porch with Emily, watching the sunset paint the sky with vibrant hues, I reflected on the vast distance I had traveled. The raw betrayal that had once consumed me now felt like a distant, faded memory. Olivia's apology had been a stark reminder that even the deepest wounds could, in time, begin to heal. But it had also solidified my unshakable resolve to never again settle for anything less than I deserved. Life was not perfect. It never would be. But it was mine. And for the first time in years, I felt an overwhelming sense of being exactly where I was meant to be. The early morning sunlight streamed through the living room window, casting a warm golden glow across the space. It was a new day, another precious step forward in a life that, at long last, felt truly mine. I sat at the kitchen table, savoring my coffee, while Lily and Ethan chattered animatedly about their weekend plans. Their laughter, bright and unrestrained, filled the house, a constant, joyful reminder of what truly mattered. The journey to this moment had been arduous, fraught with anger, heartbreak, and gnawing self-doubt. But now, looking at my children, witnessing the beautiful life we were meticulously rebuilding, a profound peace settled over me, a tranquility I hadn't known in years. "Dad, can we go to the park later?" Ethan asked, his eyes alight with excitement. "Of course," I replied, a smile spreading across my face. "How about we pack a picnic and make a day of it?" Lily grinned. Can Emily come too? Her question, so simple and earnest, caught me off guard, but only for a moment. Emily had in recent weeks become a gentle, unwavering constant in our lives, her warmth and kindness slowly weaving themselves into the very fabric of our family. She had met Lily and Ethan a few weeks prior, and to my immense relief, they adored her. I'll ask her, I said, keeping my tone casual, but let's plan it either way. Emily had been a revelation, a surprise in every sense of the word. After years of feeling utterly invisible in my marriage, she saw me for who I was, a father, a man, someone genuinely worth valuing. Her presence wasn't overwhelming or demanding. It was steady, profoundly supportive, and infused with a quiet, infectious joy. Later that afternoon, we gathered at the park. Emily arrived, a picnic basket brimming with snacks in her hands, her easy smile lighting up the entire day. Lily and Ethan, bursting with energy, raced ahead to the playground while we meticulously set up a blanket beneath the comforting shade of a venerable tree. You're spoiling them, I teased, as she meticulously unpacked cookies and sandwiches. They deserve it, she said with a shrug, her eyes meeting mine. And so do you. Her words made me pause, a profound realization settling over me. For so long I had been conditioned to believe that my worth was inextricably tied to what I could provide, to my utility. Emily, with her quiet strength, reminded me that I was enough, simply as I was. As the afternoon unfolded, I watched my children play, their laughter mingling harmoniously with the ambient sounds of the park. Emily sat beside me, her hand resting lightly on mine, and in that moment I understood something profoundly simple, yet immensely significant. I was happy, truly, deeply, undeniably happy. Meanwhile, Olivia continued to navigate her own tumultuous journey. She had finally secured a job at a local boutique, a stark contrast to the high society events she had once effortlessly dominated. It was humbling work, undoubtedly, but it seemed to be slowly, painstakingly teaching her the invaluable lesson of effort and personal responsibility. She had also, to her credit, begun the arduous process of mending her fractured relationship with Lily and Ethan. She called regularly, asked about their lives with genuine interest, and even attended a few of their school events. The lingering bitterness that had once defined our interactions was gradually fading, replaced by a tentative, fragile truce. One evening after a school play, Olivia approached me in the parking lot. David, she began, her voice hesitant, a fragile whisper. Thank you for letting me be part of their lives. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm truly grateful. I nodded, my expression neutral yet not unkind. It's not about what you deserve, Olivia. It's about what they deserve, and they deserve to have both parents in their corner. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, but she said nothing more. We parted ways, an unspoken understanding hanging between us, a quiet testament to how far we had both come. As the months continued their steady march, my life continued to take shape in ways I had never dared to imagine. Emily and I grew closer, our relationship a strong, enduring edifice built on the bedrock of trust and mutual respect. She encouraged me to rediscover hobbies I had long neglected, passions that had been suffocated by the demands of my previous life. Photography, invigorating hikes, even the simple joy of cooking. One evening as we prepared dinner together, she turned to me, her expression thoughtful, her gaze soft. David, she said softly, have you ever thought about what's next? Not just for us, but for you. I paused, considering her question, a warm feeling spreading through me. I think I'm already living it, I replied, a genuine smile gracing my lips. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. She smiled, her eyes radiating warmth. I'm glad. You deserve this. The days bled into weeks, and the weeks into months. Life wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was real, and it was undeniably mine. Olivia's chapter in my life had closed, irrevocably, but it had imparted lessons I would carry with me forever. The paramount importance of self-respect, the transformative power of forgiveness, and the invaluable authenticity of a life lived true to oneself. As I stood on the porch one evening watching Lily and Ethan play in the softening light of the yard, Emily by my side, an overwhelming sense of gratitude washed over me. The road to this moment had been long, arduous, and often agonizing, but it had led me finally to a place of profound peace, unwavering love, and radiant hope. This was my new beginning,